How's my mustache?
Same as always.
Is that supposed to be? Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Bing! Is this a couch? It's more like a chair.
This is a couch.
Chair couch. Bing slouches!
It's a reclining couch.
With a sweet console.
Yeah, we took a proper break. Mm-hmm. We took a proper break mainly because we were building all this.
We mean Dale.
We had to build a podcast studio. Mm-hmm. It got so big. That's false. We actually we're just building a house. So I actually lived in a tiny home for 6 months and didn't have the space for doing podcasts.
It's really tough to do a podcast in a tiny home, but the audio, terrific.
In less than 300 square feet, it's a little bit it's a little tough.
But we're back.
And we're talking about heat acclimation. Every year, never fails. The first hot day of the year, all of a sudden, bing, 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 we start getting emails on heart rate thresholds. Everyone's heart rate jumps through the roof. And it's not even like the hottest of the hot. It's just the hottest it's been.
We actually just saw it a couple weeks ago at Sunny King. We did the Sunny King Criterium, and first hot day we've had, really. I think our race was like 90 plus degrees. And that shocks you when you're used to riding in 60, 50, 40. We've still had some really cold mornings. Even this week we're 50 degrees outside in the morning time. So going from that to 90 plus with some humidity, that will shock the system big time.
Yeah.
And you notice it, like heart rate. I mean, we'll dive into the details, but heart rate goes way high. Like we had a lot of athletes with peak heart rate stuff.
Myself
even though their power numbers, it wasn't like these were amazing numbers. These numbers we see them hit on hard group rides.
Yeah.
Earlier, a few weeks prior, we saw them hit that or better at lower heart rate levels.
Yeah, I had an athlete in from Michigan and went and ran with him, and he's been training in Michigan weather. Mm-hmm. And we went and ran outside in mostly shaded path, and he was like, "Oh, it's really getting to me." I'm like, "It's 64 outside. Like, this is awesome. Like, this is the best it's going to be." So it's all relative to what you've been training in, what you're used to, and what your body adapts to. Mm-hmm. But we're going to get all into the kind of a little bit of the ins and outs of why it's important, and then step by step in how to work that into your training and your regimen. But first, little shout outs. We're getting back to shout outs, man.
I like them. I like the shout outs.
We went away from shout outs. I wasn't happy about it when we went away from it. I'm bringing them back.
We're coming back with them.
Yeah. So I got to shout out Ben Lasher. This dude has been putting in serious work for years and had his best by far 50K trail race. He's an ultra runner. But the dude has changed himself as far as being a runner, like in form and speed and everything. He's just bought into the whole deal. So the improvements are showing. He's gotten into cycling. He's done some gravel. The dude is not afraid to do anything. He's like the guy like that will just randomly jump into a crit because he thinks it looks cool.
Did that last year, yeah.
Yeah, he did. So shout out to Ben.
Stretching the comfort zone. A testament to consistency.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've heard it a lot if you've listened to previous podcasts.
It's a C word.
Consistency, the big one.
Consistency is a real C word.
I'm going to give a shout out to Claire Abry.
Oh, yeah.
Claire got into cycling, last year? Year before we started working with her? I think it was maybe last year. She's not been in the game for long and has climbed through the ranks quickly. And at Sunny King, she showed how all the hard work and her natural talent is paying off. She was not only bridging across to the front groups numerous times in the P12 women's race, but she ended up making the final move and towing it around, driving the brake. Got caught by a smaller group behind, which was not fortunate. But Ended up finishing in the lead group, and an awesome result to kick off the year, considering she was racing. I guess it was a year and a half ago, because she Gateway Cup 2 years ago was her first kind of big event. So she's gone from extreme beginner and worked on all areas. She's worked on her cornering. She's worked on obviously the skill-based stuff, and then done all the training. And it's a huge testament to again, consistency, and also her talent. I'm really excited to see what she does this year.
Yeah, and shout out to Coach Heather, who's been working with her. Yeah, she rode like a boss.
And then I'll do one more. Brady Lawson, one of Coach Johnny's athletes, as well. Coach Mason also with William Putnam. So there's been a lot of folks who've Brady's been tearing up the collegiate scene, and he's also been racing category-based stuff, and he's had a ton of great results already this year. And then William Putnam had just moved out to Richmond, and he's picked up a few wins and has the points for his Category 2 upgrade. He's another guy who we've been coaching for a couple years now, and he's gone from just starting racing all the way to what's going to be a Cat 2 this year, and maybe more. So there we go. Shout outs.
Yeah, I got one more.
Okay.
So Jeff Horn and Lin Wu did the Death by 5K, which is essentially, I believe, it's a 50K broken up into a 5K every hour for 10 hours. And it's an overnight thing, and it's a long, drawn out like race, trail race, and they both did it and did great. I think Jeff was I want to say 13 minutes faster than last year over all of the 10Ks. So
that's huge.
Yeah, great,
awesome,
great improvements across the board. All right, so it's hot, it's humid. Your body is not real happy about it. So jump in a little bit about why is this even important? Why does our body struggle with the heat and humidity?
Yeah, so it turns out your body likes to maintain a certain core temperature. Homeostasis. And a lot of energy, even just sitting here, there's a lot of energy going into keeping our body regulated and level. Now, when we begin to exercise, our muscles start generating a large amount of heat. So as you contract muscles, as they relax, heat is formed. We got to get rid of that heat. So the higher the intensity, the more heat is being generated. One of the ways we cool off is by perspiration. We start sweating. And then our body also starts sending our more blood towards the skin level to help increase the cooling effect.
Yeah, so you're trying to offload heat from locomotion, and then you're also trying to stay cool from the exterior forces of heat, meaning the sun and the humidity and whatnot. So your body is just fighting your own your own capacity with what it's putting out, what it's giving you on the day as far as weather conditions.
Correct. Yeah, if you think about different levers that are pulling that are either increasing or decreasing this, you have the external conditions, and then you also have the intensity of which you are going.
Because around here we say it's not the heat.
It's the humidity.
It's the humidity.
It's the humidity that gets you.
And why is that?
So a big thing there is you don't get the same cooling effect. So when the humidity goes up, that the sweat on your skin is no longer evaporating. Yeah. So the evaporative cooling that should be happening and that happens in dry areas is not taking place. And what happens is your body just doesn't cool as much. So your core temperature is going to rise more in high humidity than it will in lower humidity.
Yeah, so in midsummer, when you are just drenched in sweat and it's just dripping off of you nonstop, you are not getting near the cooling effect that you are getting in the spring right now, where it's pretty dry, and you may go for the same amount of time at a similar effort even, and you don't feel like you're sweating much at all.
Exactly.
You might notice salt stains on your kits and stuff like that, but you're not going to notice the dripping sweat because it's evaporating.
Exactly. Yeah, so you have to be much more aware. High heat, high humidity, that's kind of the worst of all things. High heat and humidity. So if you're in the southeast, we don't look at what the temperature on the day is. We look at what the feels like temperature is. And typically what you're going to find is if it's 95 here, we're in Memphis, Tennessee, 95 in Memphis with, 70% humidity, 80% humidity, we're going to see at least 10 degrees hotter as it feels like temperature. So we're looking at 105 plus typically.
Yeah.
And that's just something we know is going to increase this stress on the body, and it's going to increase your core temperature. And if you're not used to it, all of that stuff is going to be magnified even more. So you can train it, which is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Kind of phase 2 of this talk is what things can you do to prepare your body to better handle the extreme conditions.
So before we get into that, I mean, another way to think about this is once your core temperature starts to climb, your body in some instances treats it a lot like you have a fever. And so it's trying to offload that heat and bring the core temperature back down. So again, it's pushing a lot of the resources it has out to the skin. And then at some point, if your core temperature does get too high, your body basically starts shutting down organs and other, anatomy in your body.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous thing that can happen.
Can be, yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously if you get above I think it's 104, you're in a spot.
Not good.
You're in a bad spot. We'll just put it that way.
And you'll end up getting even cognitive issues will begin to happen at those style of temperatures.
And it's also then magnified by hydration status. So if you are actually overheating, but you're also letting yourself get dehydrated, then you are magnifying the problem. Your blood plasma is dropping, your blood sodium is dropping, you have less blood to cool your body. And
your blood's getting thicker, which means your heart rate is going to increase as well. So some of that increase in heart rate is coming from, you've got this thicker, more viscous blood because the blood plasma volume has dropped. The fluid in your blood has gotten less. And so you run into major
So long story short,
strain there.
Try not to get there.
We don't want it. And we want to prep you for it, which I think is a good time to roll into phase 2, right?
So the major things that we can touch on, as far as acclimation, talk a little bit about the process of acclimation.
Yeah, so as far as acclimation, benefits can be seen in as little as 7 days. So usually between 7 and 14 days. 14 days is when you're going to see the biggest physiological benefit from the whole thing. And it's something, I guess the good news here is, people might be thinking hey, I don't live where it's hot. You can train this indoors. Not every single session has to be done in high heat. And in fact, we would recommend you don't do that. We would still want you keeping your higher intensity sessions in a more cool environment where your body can stress itself through muscular contraction. Your body's not stressing itself by trying to keep you cool. But adding in or utilizing your more endurance-based days to do more of your heat acclimation stuff. Crank the heat up in your room. But 7 to 14 days, you're going to start seeing the benefits of it. You're going to start noticing lower heart rate, lower relative perceived exertion. Your RPE is going to drop.
I think that's a big for people around here. Once you're in the heat for a while, you get acclimated. To being out especially in the extreme heat, there's such a mental shift about being every year everyone's oh, here comes the heat. My performance is gonna go to crap, pretty soon here. But realistically, if you consistently spend time in it, you're going to perform better in those conditions than if you're constantly doing your training indoors in comfortable temperatures and whatnot. You may not be hitting PRs by power, by speed or whatever, but you are going to perform better than you would have in those conditions.
And interestingly enough, there was a podcast I was listening to that had a scientist on there who had done a very extensive experiment on heat adaptation training, those that went through the process of acclimating to the heat and training in higher heat conditions. Just adding in, their protocol was adding in zone 2. I guess it was more 65 to 70% of what your FTP would be. So they were training at that intensity level, and it actually showed that their improvements were greater in cool temps than the group that just did the cooler training. So they saw increased benefits at colder temps, and they saw increased benefits at warmer temps.
And that tracks like perfectly with what we see around here when we have an athlete that trains through the summer for like a race in like the Northeast or in the Midwest. Like you go from training in 90s and heat indexes of over 100, and then you get to go to somewhere that's like in the 70s and no humidity, and you just feel like a monster. Like it's amazing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, for sure. What else do we want to touch on there?
The big thing you say it takes somewhere between 7 to 14 days. You can see the benefits as early as 5 days. Is that consistent days on or is that like broken every other day you're doing heat training?
So it's going to kind of deal with like what do you have the time to do, right? So the ideal way would be you keep your normal training schedule and you start adding in 60 to 90 minutes of higher heat, lower intensity, more, think of it as zone two style stuff. Something that's not going to add a lot of physical strain from the effort, but is going to add that strain just due to the heat. So you're going to see an increase in heart rate at those levels, but over time you're going to start seeing that heart rate drift decrease as your body adapts to it. So ideal world, you would add in additional. If you don't have the time to do that, which most of the people we coach and deal with are time-crunched athletes, we would still want you keeping your long training session, and if that's going to be better done outside, then do it outside, even if it's cooler. However, we would want your endurance days to now move indoors if you have to do it, or you start training during the high heat if you have the ability to do so. Like what I've started doing, because I don't do 2-a-days. I don't have 7 days a week where I'm training. What I've started doing is trainer, cutting the AC off in my room. My pain cave is in like a converted attic space, so that it doesn't get as cool as anywhere else in the house. So it's really been heating up, and I've been using actually one of those core sensors. Yep. And my goal is to peg my core temperature between the 101 and 102 range and keep the effort, scale down my intensity if I need to keep the core temp in that range. And I'm trying to accumulate time there. So, I mean, the more you can do it, the better off you're going to be. If you don't have time to do it every single day, then it just may delay the duration until you get the full benefits from it.
So, what about doing a trainer session? The exercise, you mentioned the exercise session versus not exercise sessions. What's was there a difference? Is there a difference there between?
So yeah, you can do
actual exercise heat exposure versus passive heat exposure.
So adding in passive can accelerate the benefits of it without the actual physical cost that's going to come from it. So it's not going to impact your recovery nearly as much. So adding in an extra endurance session, that's going to impact your recovery, obviously. Right. If you're someone who's going to add a second session in to work on the heat acclimation side of things, do your priority workout first. So that would be your morning session. Add in the acclimation session second. So you don't want to impact your hydration status. You don't want to dehydrate yourself some, because you are going to, you're going to be sweating quite a bit during these. And we'll talk about hydration being super important here in a second with regards to all this. But if you're doing a heat acclimation in the morning, you're fatiguing yourself slightly, and then you're trying to produce a good effort in the afternoon, not nearly as effective as flip-flopping that.
Right.
But what you can also do, and there were some studies that showed improvement in doing your training sessions, and then afterwards, either doing hot tub, hot bath, or sauna if you have access to it. And that has been shown to increase the effect as well. It speeds up the process of your body acclimating to it all.
Was there any of those that were better than the others?
I'm trying to remember offhand. I believe it was the hot tub, the actual water exposure was better than the sauna exposure.
I mean, that would make sense.
Need to double check that,
because
though.
the hot tub is like the most like amount of humidity you could possibly be in.
Yeah,
You know.
100%.
Yeah. So real quick, like roll back the adaptations that happen when you undergo heat training. So like one of which was your sweat rate increases.
Yep.
That's for most people, I think that's the most noticeable one, like right away. Like you get in it just happens. Like you get in the first hot day and maybe you haven't really noticed yourself sweating for like the last month. And now all of a sudden you're drenched. Like, so your sweat rate is going to increase. Your blood plasma going up is going to increase. So essentially you have more blood.
More stuff to help keep you cool.
Yeah. And then, so I believe, like, don't quote me on this, but I believe there is something that goes on as well with the brain, with thermoregulation, where it's more or less your body is just literally, your brain is just better at sensing the differences in heat. So it's going to help, regulate the blood and the heart rate and stuff a little bit better.
And you'll probably notice yourself sweating much sooner.
Yeah.
As you adapt.
And with that comes that perception of heat. It's like perspective is an amazing thing. You go up like it, like a climb that's 3 miles at 8%, and then you come to anything less than that, doesn't seem so bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
You go train in horrid like 110 feels like temperatures for a few hours. Everything below that now seems not so bad.
Yeah, RPE is a real thing.
Yeah.
Like your perceived exertion is huge, and the studies that have gone into this have shown a pretty significant decrease in RPE for athletes after this 7 to 14 day mark.
And if you never put yourself in that position because you're like, it's just too hot outside to train.
I was actually just joking with with an athlete the other day who most of last year, there were multiple days where I'd be like, heat acclimation day.
Yeah.
Ride in the afternoon. He had the ability to ride in the afternoon if he wanted to, but it was like ride in the afternoon or ride indoors and cut the heat off. Don't use the fan. And he joked all year long about how he knows he should be doing those, but he never did. They're not the most fun.
No,
not the most fun
really.
session.
No.
Although sometimes, sweating it out feels pretty good. Like you're getting all them toxins out.
I mean, I'm not I don't mind sweating by any means, and I'm good at it. Trust me.
Oh, same.
But I have a weird thing about like just walking out. This is what happens to me when I get heat acclimated. I just walk outside in like the hotter temps, and I'm just like drenched.
Yeah, when we're coaching people,
too efficient.
Like in the summertime, it's 3 shirts a day sometimes.
Yeah.
Unless you just want to be in a wet shirt.
Just a machine.
Just not
machine.
good. Not good.
All right, so let's jump into the like practical application here. What can we do to improve our, not only acclimate to the heat, but improve our performance in the heat as well? So we'll start with training. What can we do in training specifically?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what we were touching on a little bit. Start adding in your zone 2 days where you're going to keep steady effort. And you have the within this, you kind of have the option to keep your power. If we're talking cyclists here, power or pace, if you're a runner, you can keep that steady and then start paying attention to what your heart rate's going to do. You're going to notice a drift up in heart rate. So say an athlete's going to hold wattage at 200 watts. That may be an endurance zone for some people. It may be higher for others. But if you're training at your endurance zone, and I actually saw this, I started a couple weeks ago doing some of these indoor sessions. At my zone 2, typically my heart rate's going to be around 130, 135-ish. I can kind of settle in right there. Now, over the course of this session in the high heat and no fan, I saw my heart rate go from what would have been that 130, 135 range. It was up over 160 by the end of it. So when you think about that, that's stress on the body, right? So if you're holding power steady, your heart rate is going to rise as you adapt to it. So that's a higher stress on the body. So if you're thinking about like from a training standpoint, what we would want our athletes thinking about is, okay, like if you're doing this in the afternoon, what do you have the next day? Now, if you have like a really high, very important high intensity workout the next day, okay, what we may want you to do is start dropping your power and maintaining your heart rate, depending on how much strain you're wanting to put on your system. Ideally, what I would prefer athletes doing would be, all right, target your zone 2 levels and let the heart rate drift up. And you're going to notice the body's going to get better at that. You're not going to see nearly as much drift. Now, if you have access to a core sensor, which we've got some of those core sensors, with that, the recommendation is staying between 101 and 102 core temp. Like you don't need to get crazy high with the core temp, or you really do risk putting too much stress on the body.
Yeah.
But to get a lot of benefit from this without as much risk, and you can get to 101 pretty quick. Core temp.
I stay there.
Yeah.
In the heat of the summer,
Yeah. So, I mean, the more of it you can do, that's going to be good. Like, if you have the ability to train in the heat, do so. Like, don't take all of your sessions indoors in the cool. Yeah. And then you need to be thinking about, like, okay, what is race day going to look like for you? I think one of the big things, and the reason we're talking about it on April 18th, is it never fails that when May hits, like usually we kind of have fluctuating temps all through April, but once May hits, the heat's pretty much here to stay here in the Memphis area, and we have athletes that will have some of their A-goal races around this time frame, and if it's on the first hot day, that can crush all of your performance. Heart rate pegs up. And it's almost like what happens at higher altitude. So high humidity and heat, similar effects to high altitude. You can't go as deep because the heart rate just isn't going to recover like it would in cooler conditions. So think about, like, if you're trying to plan out in your training when to start doing this, look at when your A race is, when your higher like priority stuff is. And if there's a risk of it being high temps and you're not currently training in it, you need to go indoors or you need to start training in it. Like if you have the ability to. That's
the big, like if it's not yet hot and humid or hot in your area, you're going to have to do it inside. And like Brian said, you can if you work out in a smaller room, no airflow, like, and you can even add clothing, like you can really get your core temp up pretty quickly, especially even on some zone 2 stuff indoors. Like, so don't just think like, well, it's not hot enough here. Like, do it inside. If you got to turn a heater on, turn a heater on. But because you're literally, if you're going to hotter temps to race and you have not done it at all, like you're risking your day, all the work you've put in, just because you didn't want to throw a sweatshirt on, while you were running on the treadmill inside.
Exactly. And that's kind of a big thing, right? Like what you're wearing does play a big role. So when I'm doing these, usually if I'm riding the trainer, I'm going to have just my bib shorts on, fan going, AC going, because my body generates a ton of heat. When I'm doing these, I'm wearing full kit, no fan, no AC, like it's hot and muggy in that room.
Yeah.
You could even, if you're someone that's going to go to higher humidity where the cooling effect is just not the same, inside your house, if you have an HVAC system, it's sucking humidity out.
Yep.
So you could even use a humidifier in the room with you to better represent what you're going to be dealing with.
Just be prepared.
Yeah, it's not going to be...
Just be prepared for some smell and possibly it starts raining from the ceiling.
Use a towel.
So for those of you that don't know, whilst I was living in the tiny home, I bought a shipping container to work out in, and I made it the cheapest gym I possibly could. So I had a place to work out for 6 months while we built this house, and I didn't insulate it. So there were days when it was freezing cold. It was 28 degrees. I was inside that thing, 28 degrees, and it would just start raining from the ceiling because I was just like blowing out all the humidity. It just started raining. I was like sweating, like all the sweat was like like freezing on my arms, but it started raining from the ceiling. So
I do remember one day where you said how cold your feet were.
oh man, wet feet, 28 degrees. Yeah. But that's something else to think about. Like you are like when you're breathing, you're putting out more humidity. So like if you're in a small room, the humidity is going to increase fairly quickly, like with just you being in there breathing. Like it's you can simulate this really pretty well.
Yeah, I've never used a humidifier.
Yeah, you don't need it. Really.
No.
So the only thing I would say on training, make sure that don't waste your quality efforts. Like get the quality stuff in, like all your structured stuff, your higher intensity intervals, and then as you get closer to race day, now's when we should start putting some of those more quality race-paced efforts in the hot temperatures. And then and start working your way from less specific to more specific to race day. And if you choose a goal race and you, for some reason, decide to not even look at the local weather for that time of year, that's not smart.
That is very not smart.
So just make sure that you check it out. And if you need to simulate, but make sure you're doing some of your late stage race efforts in it. But then further out, you don't have to waste those efforts and possibly kill your quality by doing them in the heat.
Yeah, that's where you'd want to supplement and do your more endurance days in the heat. Keep your quality stuff in the cool. And then as your body's going to acclimate pretty quick to the whole thing. Yeah. Now, if it's the whole use it or lose it thing, right? It's like if you go to high altitude to get the increase in red blood cell count, and then you come back home and 4 weeks later is when your goal race is, you're not going to see the same. Your body's going to go back to where it was prior to going to the high altitude.
Do you want to know what my red blood cell count changed to from going from living at 300 feet to 528 feet?
Ooh,
I mean,
big spike.
I mean, we're living at the top of Mount Monterey now.
Mount Monterey over here, baby.
Got the blood cell.
Yeah, so further out, use it on your endurance days. As you get closer, you do need to simulate what the body's going to do. It's going to help, if nothing else, it's going to help you from a pacing strategy. Especially if you're a triathlete. Like triathletes, you gotta train in the heat as you get close because it's going to be different.
I mean, the camp that we have put on multiple years for long course, Ironman, late season Ironman, where it could be super hot. We make everybody do that 20-mile run at noon.
Yeah. When we could do it at 7.
Yep.
But we force it in the heat because that's when you're going to be doing it. You got to know how the body's going to react. The other thing, we talked about some of the passive stuff, so adding in just sauna sessions. It doesn't even have to be right after the workout. Adding in time where where you are spending time in the heat. Your body's going to increase blood plasma volume with that as well, which is kind of one of the main benefits that you're going to get from this whole thing. Now, I think the next thing would be, during these training sessions, hydration has to be a major focus.
100%.
Our goal here is not to see how much stress and stuff we can put on your body. Know that your body's going to be working a lot harder than it would. Don't look at, it's a zone 2 ride for an hour. Think of it as this is going to feel like on my body a higher intensity session, like a zone 3, zone 4 style session. You're going to be sweating like it is, and you need to make sure you are not depleting your body. So the more fluid you can keep topped off. We got to have the sodium in the fluid. Those are the two main things. Now, great time to calculate sweat rate, and we don't need to go down a giant rabbit hole here on all the things. But
we're going to try to keep it short here on hydration. But just know, if you're sweating, you are outputting fluid and sodium and some other electrolytes. But those are the two major levers that we're trying to keep in balance. And your body you're only going to make your life a lot harder if you either fall short on fluid or sodium or both. So throw down a couple of our major points when we talk about hydration that we give everybody on how to stay properly hydrated.
Big one, preload. So you got to preload. So that's taking a high electrolyte, high sodium drink prior to actually doing your training session.
Yeah, 60 to 90 minutes.
Yeah, 60 to 90 minutes out. If you can get a half liter in, up to we'll start sipping on. We'll do the half liter. Typically, what I'll do is like a half liter, 16 ounces, and then I'll make sure my bottles have electrolytes in them, and I'm sipping on one up until the time I get on my bike to train.
Yeah.
And then throughout that training session, we do sweat sodium testing, so we actually know what our body needs from a sodium standpoint. But I've got 1,500 milligram per liter in my bottles that I am using and that I'm consuming during. Now, sweat rate is going to fluctuate from people. Sweat sodium concentration. So how salty your sweat is different person to person. How much you sweat is different from person to person. We have some people that sweat under a liter per hour, half liter per hour. We've got some that sweat, Dale and I both, over 2 liters an hour. So we're talking 4 pounds of fluid or more per hour under high intensity. So if you're drinking 16 ounces and you're sweating out 4+ pounds, that's not a good, sweating out a pound, losing 4, that's not a good recipe.
Yep.
And what you're doing is when you are dehydrating like that, the blood plasma, we talked about already, blood's getting thicker, heart rate's going sky high, the strain on your body is higher than it needs to be. There's no reason to do it. So take care of this stuff.
This is strain you can prevent or at least prolong.
Exactly. Yep. So get the sodium in your drinks. Odds are, for most people, you are not going to consume more sodium than your body is putting out if you are sweating a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
we're making the assumption that you're sweating like hell. Like,
correct.
Just buckets.
And the reason I mentioned, like, this is a great time to, usually if you're doing this indoors, hopefully you have access to a body weight scale that you can step on prior.
Detecto.
And then do it again afterwards and see what the difference is. Like, I'll see 6+ pounds routinely.
Yeah.
So you can, I mean, you can push out a lot of fluid. So we want to make sure you're not taking control of things that are going to improve your performance. And hydration's huge.
So preload, if you can, make sure you get electrolytes specific to what is going out of your body. And if you need a ballpark estimate, you could go somewhere around 1,000 milligrams per liter concentration. So make sure that you're keeping electrolytes in the bottle. You can still somewhat drink to thirst, but make sure, like, you don't want to then like have a bottle of electrolytes and then a bottle of plain water. Now you've just diluted the concentration of what you've been drinking in half. So keep the electrolytes coming in. If you need to like swig water and stuff to rinse your mouth, that's fine. But keep the electrolytes coming in if you are dumping buckets of sweat. You got to keep it coming in. We're trying to like keep like fairly close, like reduce the losses of fluid and then keep your blood sodium in balance. And your body handles fluid loss actually way better than it does sodium loss. So, but you can get into the problem with either or both if you're diluting or you're just drinking water, or like keep the electrolytes coming in. That sodium is so important in your body. You can't fall behind.
And we did do a full podcast.
Multiple.
On hydration.
There's multiple. So yeah, go back and watch that one. Other things, like as far as hydration, you can carry larger bottles. Like I think Brian and I in the summer both carry liter bottles. I think half of Memphis now.
If it fits on their bikes, most people are riding with the 32-ounce bottles now.
Carries larger bottles.
Add a third one to your back pocket if you need to.
Yep.
Yeah.
So make sure you have enough fluid on board in general, just so that you don't risk falling behind, and you want to be that person rationing out fluids on a ride, hoping you can get to the store stop.
No, correct. So we're talking about adapting to the heat, acclimating to the heat, so your perceived exertion is going to go down, your performance is going to go up. Now, what else can we do?
In those same conditions.
In those same conditions, correct. So what else can we do? We talked earlier about there's 2 things we're trying to do. One, we're trying to improve the way our body handles it, and the other is there's these external factors that put stress on our body. So if we start thinking about things we can do on race day to improve performance, we've done the acclimation side of things, which is going to greatly help us. Now, what can we do to take strain off our body in order to allow our body to push harder to the
race.
pedals. Don't race would be a good, yes, that would be an easy one. So one of the things, clothing, like what you're wearing is going to be important. If you were to wear a wind jacket on a 95-degree day with 90% humidity, that is a very stupid thing to do.
Very.
On the other hand, if you have nice, breathable clothing on, like I can notice a difference when I'm wearing the higher quality breathable stuff versus like a lower end, thicker material in the cooling effect and how my body is feeling.
Yeah.
So clothing is one of the things you can do. Ice socks. This is huge.
Any type of pre-cooling or like anything that you can do to cool your body, and we'll talk a little bit about where and when, but like pre-cool, like the ice socks before on your, like most people put them under their jersey on their back or whatever.
Which is just pantyhose with ice shoved in it.
Yeah.
Tie the pantyhose.
Yep. Or the slushies, like drinking slushies or something like that, has been used for years and years and years now. A lot of people are doing like the electrolyte slushies. So you're getting both. You're getting bonus like electrolytes plus pre-cooling the core temperature.
Yep.
You can use those cooling sleeves. Those actually do work fairly well. The white sleeves that you can keep pouring cool water on them.
Make sure it's water, not like blue Powerade.
Yeah.
Pro
I've seen it.
tip.
But some of the other things, like if you're like for runners and triathletes, the three best places to cool your body, to get your core temperature to come down as quickly as possible, are the bottoms of your feet, the palms of your hands, and right below your eyes on your face, so your cheeks. Those are the best places to then send that chilled blood back to the core. So if you have like access to ice, or
Don't forget the crotch, Dale.
the crotch is a good one, but
A little chafing
but the
effect.
femoral artery is not like it has to then go out to the extremities and come back. So those non-hairy parts of your body have the fastest path back to your core, essentially, to cool it. So for most people, your feet are covered. It's really kind of hard to put stuff on your cheeks, but you can carry stuff. So like carrying cold bottles, like I'll freeze bottles and put them in transition, and they may not be totally frozen by the time I get there, but colder bottles like to run with and drink fluids. Grab ice as much as you can and hold it, and you can put it on your skin, but it's not as effective in total. Like if it's easier for you, people throw water on their heads, they dunk their heads, oddly enough, like the hypothalamus that controls like your thermoregulation is kind of like I think it's like right behind your nose, essentially. And so when you dump cold water on your head, it can actually trigger your body to increase the core temperature, because it's like blowing cold air on your thermostat,
while the other side of the house is like roasting.
Yeah. So the head is not maybe the best place. It might feel great and it's great mental boost, but it may not be the best place for actual core temperature. So like anything you can do.
And like cyclists, if you're warming up on the trainer, like holding ice packs is a very simple thing that you can do, which is going to help improve stuff. Have an ice sock, or an ice vest. They actually make ice vests as well. Hold some ice in your hands, and it's going to help keep you cooler for longer. And you're going to start the race in a better spot. And then if you've got the big ice sock, you're going to have that extra cooling effect during the event, which is going to, like Scott McNeil, one of the guys, really strong cyclist, had never done an ice sock before. And we were racing Augusta 2 years ago. And we were working the feed zone for him, doing ice
Horribly
socks.
hot.
Horribly hot.
Exposed.
It was like 2 p.m. People from Colorado were like complaining about how this was just unsafe conditions and they should be canceling it. And all of us Memphians are like, bring on the heat, baby. We have to go to your altitude, so you come deal with our humidity. But he was like, dude, the ice sock saved me. He's like, it was crazy how much better he felt the final lap because that was the first time he took one. Like, we kept trying to hand them to him.
Yeah.
By the end, he was feeling so hot that he was like, oh, I'm going to go for it. And he was like, it saved me. I will give props to USA Cycling. That year they had neutral ice socks in 2 spots on the course.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
I was taking one lap and putting it in my front, and then the next lap I was putting it on my back, and I just kept alternating them out. So I always had
So the ice sock
a
is
big
clutch.
ice sock going. Huge difference.
What else we got? I think that's it. Like,
Yeah, we talked about kind of what happens. Talked about how to acclimate. We talked about things we should do on
external.
race day.
Yeah. It does, it is some extra things to think about and whatnot, but your body, it's a make or break. Like, if you ever race in anything remotely hot and humid, and again, it is person to person. So if you live in, like I said, our athlete in Michigan, like, you live and you're training in 40s and 50s, and then you go somewhere and expect to race in even the 60s, which is like prime weather, like, you will not perform as well.
100%. Yep.
So make sure you're
And go back to that study we talked about where the heat control group had better performance than those that did all their training in the cool temps. So they actually improved more in the cool event as well. So they saw performance gains versus those that only trained in the cool temps. So if performance is what you're after, which if you've listened this long, gotta be.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
If you listen to these 2 idiots ramble,
I know it, right? Exactly. And a good excuse to save on your electricity bill. You can just tell your significant other that, hey, can't run the AC. Can't run the AC today. Got to get this house warm. That is not me. I keep a cold house.
All right, that's all we got. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out, listening, watching. We'll catch you guys next time. Adios.
Peace.